It's really too early to start talking about 2028's election. Nonetheless, I'm going to talk about 2028's presidential election because apparently Gavin Newsom is beating J.D. Vance in the polls. Newsweek reports Newsom edged out President Trump and Vice President Vance in a new hypothetical poll of the 2028 presidential race. Now, the fact that he edges out Trump is not super relevant. It's borderline irrelevant because Trump is not going to be able to run in 2028, even though he's kind of flirting with this idea of possibly doing it. But, he might do it. To be fair, we never know what's in store with him. So Kirsten Pelz, a spokesperson for the Republican National Committee, responded to the poll in a statement to Newsweek, quote, Gavin Newsom's extreme, failed agenda has turned California into a haven for violent crime and high taxes, causing citizens to flee the state in droves. If Democrats think exporting California's chaos to the rest of the country is their path forward, they're even more out of touch than we thought. You never see this from Democrats, by the way. You never see them going, Ron DeSantis wants to export Florida's craziness to the United States. They don't just demonize entire states like that. So Newsweek reached out to Newsom's office for comment via email. Newsom has emerged as a favorite among many Democrats to become the party's 2028 presidential nominee in recent polls. He has not formally announced a run, but has taken actions like traveling to the early voting primary state, South Carolina, that have fueled speculation he could be gearing up for a presidential run. He's cast himself as a leading foil to Trump, taking on high-profile battles over redistricting and the president's efforts to send federal troops into LA to quell protests over his immigration policies. So one thing I notice about both J.D. Vance and Gavin Newsom is that they both do kind of piss off the left and the right bases respectively in some ways. There are people on the right who don't like J.D. Vance. There are a lot of people on the far right who love him, such as the Daily Wire people. But there are a lot of people, the Groyper types, mock J.D. Vance pretty relentlessly, actually. They kind of mock his gestures, the way he looks. They probably repost some of those memes. You've seen it with him, like, edited to be bald or have those big locks. But they also make fun of him for having an Indian wife, which is pretty insane. That is the least objectionable thing about him, that he has an Indian wife. Who cares? Let the man marry who he wants to marry, as long as they're a legal consenting adult. But yeah, they're like, oh, he married an Indian woman, so that's bad somehow. Like, it's really unsubstantive, and there is a lot of substantive stuff to go after him for, but they don't really choose to go after him for that stuff. So Trump is ineligible to run for president next election. He floated the idea of running for a third term, sometimes seemingly in jest, but told Time in April 2024 that he wouldn't be in favor of repealing the 22nd Amendment. So the new poll found that Newsom leading Trump and Vance, as well as Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in a matchup against Trump, Newsom led by 4 points, 48 to 44%. He led Vance by a smaller single-point margin, 47 to 46%, and Rubio by 5 points. Okay, so he beats Trump by 4, Vance by 1, Rubio by 5. Interesting. He beats Rubio by more than Vance. I actually kind of would have thought that Rubio would be more palatable to normie Americans than Vance, but Vance is apparently Newsom's toughest competition, huh? Like, the guy is super divisive. He's slick, he's smart, he's Ivy League educated, he went to law school, he can cite case law and all that, but he's not really likable. It's just so weird. And there's a serious question too as to whether or not he will be able to carry on the MAGA torch, so to speak. Trump is suggesting he will. He's like, oh yeah, it might be my vice president next. It might be Marco Rubio. There's a lot of really good people. But there's a serious question as to whether or not J.D. Vance has it. Still, I don't know that Newsom would inherently destroy Vance, so that sort of makes sense that he's leading by 1 point. But I am surprised that he's leading Rubio by more than he's leading Vance. I feel like Republicans would find Rubio pretty palatable, actually, even if there's this this fake populist flank that's like, I don't like neocon Marco Rubio. He's bad and he's part of the old guard, and I don't like that Trump appointed him. That's my only criticism of him because he's a neocon, but other than that, Trump is great. So yeah, these people will fall in line behind Rubio, make no mistake about it. I just kind of wonder if normies and independents would fall in line behind Vance. Vance, the guy who talks about abolishing divorce. Yeah, so you married the wrong person, suck it up, deal with it. Deal with it. They're a violent thug and a clown and a freak, and an antisocial cretin, and they've lost their mind. Suck it up and deal with it. Just stay married to them. Vance doesn't believe in divorce, whereas Rubio, yeah, he's got a lot of bad takes, but they're not as I don't think they're quite as shocking to the conscience as some of Vance's takes, And Vance delivers them in a way that's very gentlemanly, very, conciliatory, but Rubio also is kind of similar. You know, he was seen as the Republican Obama in his kind of smooth talking, semi-charismatic, polished way. But yeah, Rubio is losing by 5 points to Gavin Newsom. Democrats would also lead the generic ballot by about 2 points, 48 to 46, among decided voters in the 2028 election, the poll found. Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's looking like 2026 and 2028 would lean blue so far. Democrats are leading the congressional ballot in 2026 by about 2 points. So it's like, you know, and it's funny because these elections are 20 years after 2006 and 2008, but they're kind of going to be like soft versions of 2006 and 2008 because the country's gotten so polarized that all these people in the middle, you know, they're fewer and further between. You know, people have seemingly sort of divided into camps of like Republican and Democratic, and they will never consider it anyone else. So it seems like almost every election from here until eternity will be super close. It's kind of weird to see. But Newsom is destroying Rubio, and he's narrowly leading Vance. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. This is the more the merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.